The file you're about to hear was never meant to be opened. It was sealed inside a classified archive beneath a concrete bunker outside Kaluga, labeled only with 3 words: "Do not recover." For 40 years it gathered dust, until now. My name is Sergei Antonov, or at least that's the name they allowed me to keep. For 27 years I served the committee. The kind of service that erases. A man one assignment at a time. I lived between worlds, one foot in Moscow, the other in shadows cast by enemies who didn't exist on paper. But there is one operation that never left my mind, because it changed the course of the Cold War more than any missile or summit ever did. It was winter of 1983, a year when the air itself seemed to crack under the weight of tension. American satellites circled above like hawks. Soviet warheads slept beneath frozen soil. And somewhere between those two worlds, a single radio transmission appeared, a signal that should have been impossible. It came at 02:14 Moscow time, a faint pulse, then a pattern, then silence. To most analysts, it was nothing, a glitch, an echo, a meteor reflection. But I knew better. I had heard it once before, during an operation that was erased from official records, Operation Glass 7, a mission so classified that even the KGB archivists whispered about it only. After shots of vodka. The signal wasn't American. It wasn't Soviet. It was something else. A warning, hidden inside layers of encrypted pulses that matched no known protocol. The morning after the transmission, I was summoned to the Lubyanka. The corridors were colder than the streets outside, and every step echoed as if the walls themselves were listening. Waiting for me in a dim, silent room was General Baranov, a man whose stare could freeze boiling water. He didn't greet me. He didn't stand. He simply slid a folder across the table. Inside was a single photograph. A man in a long coat standing near a snow-covered train platform. His face was half hidden in shadow. But even through the grainy print, I felt something familiar. A memory I'd spent a decade trying to forget. This man, Baranov said, was seen moments before the nuclear alert. Warning was triggered in the West last night. My throat tightened. I knew the face. It belonged to Agent Viktor Lebedev. Once my partner, once my closest friend. And officially dead since 1972. Baranov continued, "Your task is simple, find him. And if the Americans get to him first, silence him." It was at that moment I realized the truth. Victor hadn't betrayed the committee. He had run from it. And if he was alive, then he was the only person left on Earth who understood the meaning of the signal that reappeared last night. A warning that, if ignored, could ignite a war ending the world in less than 6 minutes. I left the Lubyanka with the folder tucked inside my coat, pretending not to notice the 2 agents assigned to escort me, or rather, to shoot me in the back if I made the wrong phone call. The hunt had begun, and I already knew. Finding Victor meant uncovering why he had vanished, who he had become, and why a man dead for 11 years had sent a message, powerful enough to shake the nuclear balance of the Cold War. I reached the outskirts of Leningrad before dawn, carried by the rhythmic clatter of an overnight train whose passengers pretended not to notice one another. In those days, silence was safer than small talk, and suspicion traveled faster than winter winds. I sat by the frosted window, replaying the photograph in my mind. Victor, older but unmistakable, standing alone on a platform that looked painfully familiar. He shouldn't have been alive, not after the events of 1972, not after Operation Glass 7, where the committee declared him dead in a vehicle explosion. No one was allowed to investigate. But Victor had always been better than the rest of us. Quicker, quieter, more dangerous. If he chose to disappear, not even the archives could resurrect him. And yet, there he was, resurfacing right after a nuclear alert that nearly pushed NATO to red level readiness. When the train rolled to a halt, I stepped onto the frozen platform. My boots crunched through a thin crust of ice. And for a moment I imagined Victor standing in the exact same spot, watching the same flickering station lamps that hummed like dying insects. The local informant, codenamed Sparrow, arrived late. She approached cautiously, a scarf hiding most of her face, her eyes shifting between me and the few soldiers patrolling the platform. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "There are orders to detain anyone asking about him." "Then it's fortunate I'm not asking," I replied. "I'm telling." Her expression tightened. She motioned for me to follow her into a small maintenance shed near the tracks. Inside, the air smelled of old oil and frostbitten wood. Sparrow checked the windows twice before speaking. "Victor was here," she said, 2 nights ago. But he wasn't alone. I felt a cold pressure in my chest. Who was with him? She hesitated, then slid an envelope toward me. Inside were sketches, hastily drawn, but detailed enough to tell me everything I needed to know. 3 men in unmarked winter coats, foreign faces, incorrect posture for Soviet operatives, and something more disturbing. They didn't speak Russian, Sparrow added. I think they were Americans. It made no sense. During the Cold War, a meeting like that was a death sentence for everyone involved. Unless Viktor had information so valuable that both sides were willing to risk an incident. What did they want? I asked. Sparrow lowered her voice. He said something about a countdown, and that if it reached 0, it wouldn't matter which side fired first. My pulse quickened. The transmission. The impossible signal. The pattern buried inside it. A sequence that felt more like a clock than a message. He left through the industrial district, Sparrow continued. But someone else was watching him. Who? She didn't answer verbally. Instead, she stepped aside and pointed to a deep slash in the wooden wall. A knife mark, clean and precise, carved with deliberate force. My breath caught. I recognized that mark. It belonged to a man codenamed Kolos, a tracker the committee used only when they wanted someone to disappear without questions. If Kolos was here, Viktor wasn't running from Americans alone. He was running from us. Before Sparrow could speak again, a distant whistle cut through the night. Heavy boots, the sound of train steps approaching fast. They found us, she whispered. There was no time for explanations. I pulled her toward the back exit just as the front door burst open. Bullets tore into the shed, splintering wood and metal. I shoved Sparrow behind a stack of crates and returned fire, aiming not to kill but to delay, an old habit. Viktor had taught me long ago, you don't shoot to end the chase. You shoot to choose how it ends. We slipped through a service tunnel beneath the tracks, the echo of gunshots chasing us like angry hounds. When we finally emerged into the frozen air, Sparrow clutched my arm. They won't stop, she said. Kolos has orders to clean up everything connected to Viktor. I know, I replied, and that's why we have to find him first. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the rail yard, the truth waited. A truth Viktor had risked everything to deliver. A truth strong enough to make enemies of allies and ghosts of the living. The countdown had already begun, and Viktor Lebedev was the only man who knew how long the world had left. Snow fell in slow, heavy spirals as I moved. Deeper into the industrial district, the forgotten wasteland of rusted cranes, boarded factories and chimneys that hadn't breathed smoke in decades. The city slept behind me, but here, among hollow metal giants and shattered windows, silence ruled like a dictator. It was the kind of silence that swallowed footsteps and amplified paranoia. Sparrow guided me through a maze of frostbitten alleys until we reached an abandoned boiler plant. Viktor was here for several hours, she said. He used the old communications room. It made sense. During the 60s, places like this operated as backup relay centers for internal networks. Most agents didn't know they existed. Viktor, of course, knew everything. Inside, the plant was a cathedral of steel and shadows. Our breath hung in the air like ghosts. Sparrow lit a small lantern, revealing graffiti, broken pipes, and cables that snaked across the floor like veins of a dead machine. But near the back wall, beneath an avalanche of dust, I spotted something that didn't belong. Fresh footprints. 3 sets, one heavy, one careful, one uneven, and then a fourth, barely visible, but unmistakably Viktor's. We followed them into the communications room. The dusty air smelled faintly of burnt circuitry. A table had been cleared, as if someone had set up equipment here recently. I found a strip of magnetic tape resting on the floor, its edges melted as if exposed to extreme heat. Was this his? Sparrow asked. Not sure, I replied, though I suspected the truth. Viktor always worked with magnetic media. He trusted hardware more than people. In the center of the room, Sparrow discovered a charred document pinned beneath a piece of scrap metal. Its edges were burned, but enough survived to read fragments. Phase 2 activation. Unauthorized signal source. Failsafe breach. Countdown? My blood ran colder than the wind outside. This wasn't an operation. This was a system. Something hidden. Something so compartmentalized that even the committee feared acknowledging it. Then Sparrow froze. Sergei, she whispered, pointing to a symbol stamped at the top of the page. A circle. Inside it, a vertical slash, a mark used only by Department 16, the branch responsible for psychological operations and nuclear protocol anomalies. I thought 16 was dissolved, she said. It was, I answered, at least on paper. Before either of us could process the implications, a metallic clank echoed through the hall. Not random, not accidental. Sparrow's hand moved to her pistol. My instinct told me we were no longer alone. A shadow passed across the doorframe. Slow, deliberate, enormous. Kolos. He stepped inside the room with the quiet confidence of a hunter who knew exactly where his prey would run. He was taller than anyone remembered, a mountain in a black coat, his expression carved from stone. The scar across his jaw gleamed under the faint lantern light. "You should have stayed out of this, Antonov," he rumbled. His voice was deep enough to vibrate the rusting pipes around us. "Orders are orders." "Whose orders?" I asked, keeping him talking. Kolos tilted his head slightly. "The only ones that matter." His hand moved toward his weapon. I didn't wait. I kicked over the lantern, plunging the room into darkness as Sparrow fired the first shot. Kolos lunged forward, the muzzle flash exploding against his coat but barely slowing him. I grabbed Sparrow, pulling her toward a maintenance hatch at the back of the room. We dropped into a crawl space as Kolos's boots thundered behind us. He fired blindly into the metal tunnel, sparks raining down like molten snow. Sparrow muffled a scream as a bullet grazed her arm. "Keep moving," I hissed. We emerged into an underground corridor lit only by emergency bulbs that flickered with sickly determination. Pipes rattled overhead, carrying echoes from distant parts of the plant. Behind us, Kolos's silhouette appeared at the far end of the tunnel, his outline growing larger, closer, inevitable. Sparrow stumbled. I grabbed her, pulling her upright. "He won't stop," she whispered. "I know," I said, "because he thinks I know what Viktor discovered." Kolos's footsteps grew louder, more forceful. The corridor split into two passages. Without hesitation, I took the left path, leading deeper underground, the direction Viktor would have chosen. Because if the burnt fragments, the magnetic tape, and the hidden symbol meant what I feared, then Viktor wasn't running from us. He was running from whatever was counting down. And Kolos wasn't here to silence Viktor. He was here to silence the truth. The tunnel narrowed as we descended, deeper into the forgotten underbelly of the boiler plant. The walls pulsed with the echo of distant machinery, sounds that shouldn't have existed. In a facility abandoned since the 1970s, Sparrow pressed her injured arm, her breath sharp and uneven, but she kept pace with me. The danger behind us was too great to stop. Kolos's footsteps thundered somewhere above, moving through the tunnels like a relentless echo. The man wasn't just tracking us, he was herding us, pushing us toward something, or someone. We reached a sealed metal door coated in decades of rust. "Viktor was here," Sparrow whispered, shining her small flashlight. She was right. On the door, nearly invisible, Viktor had scratched a sequence of numbers. 0214. The exact time of the strange transmission. I forced the wheel lock. It groaned, metal scraping metal, before the door finally gave way. We entered a chamber, unlike anything in the plant. Reinforced underground room with thick walls and military-grade equipment. Long since stripped, but still humming faintly with power. "This place isn't on any blueprint," Sparrow whispered. "No," I said, "and that's because it wasn't built for workers." Along one wall stood a row of consoles, their screens smashed, but their architecture unmistakable, early Cold War monitoring systems, encoded with internal channels the general public never knew existed. In the center of the room was a raised platform holding a single, dust-covered device, a transmission decoder, model Vera 3. Vera 3 units were used only in the most classified Soviet listening posts. Only 6 were ever built. 4 had been destroyed. The 5th was locked away in a military archive. And the 6th was here. I wiped dust off the metal surface. Beneath it, Viktor had etched a message. "The countdown is not a threat, it's a response." A chill crawled up my spine. "What does that mean?" Sparrow asked. I didn't answer, partly because I didn't know, partly because a new sound filled the chamber, a rhythmic beeping. It wasn't coming from the console. It was coming from below. Sparrow knelt and brushed aside debris, revealing a small metal hatch in the floor. The beeping grew faster as we opened it. Inside was a compact military-grade container, with the symbol of Department 16 stamped across it. "This is bad," Sparrow murmured. I lifted the container. It vibrated faintly, as if alive. Inside was a device the size of a brick, a sealed signal unit, still active despite decades of neglect. A single red light flashed in steady intervals. Every flash matched the time signature of the mysterious 0214 transmission. "It's broadcasting," I said. "To who?" Sparrow asked. Before I could answer, a raspy voice echoed from the entrance of the chamber. "To anyone who remembers the truth." Sparrow gasped. I turned slowly. Viktor Lebedev stood in the doorway, older, thinner, eyes hollowed by years of running, but unmistakably him. His presence froze the air between us. The world shrank to the space of that room. "Sergei," he said quietly, You were the only one they couldn't erase. I took a cautious step forward. Why the transmission? Why now? Viktor looked at the flashing device. Because the countdown reached Phase 3. Sparrow frowned. Phase 3 of what? Viktor hesitated. Then he spoke the words that none of us were prepared to hear. The Soviets and Americans created a joint, failsafe protocol during the 1962 crisis, something they buried so deep that not even presidents or premiers knew it still existed. A system designed to detect the conditions of mutually assured destruction and launch a series of automated signals to prevent it. Sparrow blinked. To prevent nuclear war? No, Viktor said grimly. To ensure it happens only if both sides lose control. The weight of his words pressed the room down like a collapsing ceiling. Phase I was passive monitoring, Viktor continued. Phase 2 was alert escalation. And Phase 3, he pointed at the device, is the confirmation stage. The system detected an anomaly, a breach in the nuclear chain, and assumed one side was preparing an unauthorized launch. But nothing happened, Sparrow said. That's why I resurfaced, Viktor replied. Because someone triggered the anomaly intentionally. Someone who wants the system to finish the countdown. And Kolos? I asked. Viktor exhaled slowly. He's been hired to erase everything. Me, you, the evidence, before Phase 4 activates. Sparrow swallowed hard. What is Phase 4? Viktor looked directly at me. The system sends a final signal to both sides, forcing them to believe the other launched first. A manufactured Armageddon. A war born not of human hatred, but of a machine's logic. Before any of us could speak again, a thunderous crash shook the corridor outside. Dust rained from the ceiling. Heavy footsteps approached, slow and certain. Kolos had found us. Viktor stepped back, hand slipping inside his coat. Sparrow drew her pistol. I grabbed the signal device. The beeping accelerated. The countdown wasn't stopping. It was waking up. Kolos stepped into the chamber like a living avalanche, his silhouette filling the doorway. Dust drifted from the ceiling with each of his footsteps. The lantern flickered, fighting the darkness that followed him like a loyal dog. His eyes locked onto Viktor first, then onto the device in my hands, the pulsing red light reflecting in his pupils, like a tiny, artificial sun. You three have something that doesn't belong to you, he said. His voice was calm, measured, deadly. Viktor moved slightly to block Sparrow, but Kolos didn't aim at her. He aimed at me. The committee wants the system to finish its sequence, Kolos continued. They want Phase 4 to activate. They want the world convinced that the first strike has already happened. I tightened my grip on the device. And if we refuse? Kolos raised his weapon. You don't get to refuse. He fired. The shockwave ripped through the chamber as Sparrow shoved me behind a console. Sparks exploded from shattered equipment. Viktor dropped to one knee, returning fire with the cold precision only a ghost of the old KGB could possess. Kolos didn't flinch. He moved forward through the bullets like a man made of armor and willpower. I crawled across the floor, clutching the signal device as bullets sang past my ears. The beeping grew faster, shorter intervals, a digital heartbeat racing toward catastrophe. Viktor shouted, Sergei, the failsafe, under the console. I reached beneath the metal frame, fingers scraping dust and broken wires until I found it, a hidden junction box marked with symbols from Department 16. My heart lurched. The box wasn't a failsafe. It was a trigger. The system wasn't waiting for Phase 4. It was already transitioning to Phase 5, the irreversible stage, the one Viktor hadn't mentioned. Kolos kicked aside a table, sending Sparrow sprawling. She tried to stand, but he struck her with brutal efficiency. She crumpled against the wall, breathing but unconscious. Viktor charged him, ramming his shoulder into Kolos's ribs. They collided like titans, crashing into machinery, knocking over steel beams that rang across the chamber like alarm bells. Kolos grabbed Viktor by the coat and hurled him onto the platform where the decoder sat. The beeping from the device reached a frantic whine. Viktor yelled, Sergei, listen to me! That device is lying to itself. It's caught in a loop. If it completes the loop, the system will broadcast the launch confirmation to both sides. How do I stop it? I shouted. You don't stop it, Viktor replied. Voice strained as he struggled against Kolos. You interrupt it. Kolos overpowered him, slamming him onto the floor. He raised his pistol, aiming at Viktor's head. No time left. I tore open the trigger box, wires tangled like a nest of serpents. I didn't need to understand the system. I needed to break it. A single severed wire wouldn't stop the countdown. It would force the machine to revert to a diagnostic mode. But cutting the wrong wire would trigger Phase 5 instantly. Behind me, Kolos tightened his grip on the pistol. Viktor met my eyes. Blue. he whispered. I cut the blue wire. The chamber went dark. Silent. Breathless. For a single second, the world held its breath with me. Then, the device screamed, a shrill static burst that knocked me backward. The red light died. The beeping stopped. The machine convulsed, then went completely still. Phase 4 aborted. Phase 5 prevented. The nuclear system, the hidden creation of two terrified superpowers, fell silent. Kolos froze. His mission failed. Viktor seized the moment, grabbing a piece of shattered metal and striking Kolos across the skull. The giant stumbled, then collapsed onto his knees. He glared at us through a haze of fury and disbelief. "You fools!" he growled. "You can't stop what's coming. The committee will bury this. They will bury you." Viktor stepped closer. "Maybe, but they won't bury truth forever." Kolos reached for his pistol again, so Viktor fired first. The echo lingered in the chamber long after Kolos fell. Sparrow stirred. Pain etched across her face. "Is it over?" I looked at the dead device in my hands, a relic of paranoia, fear, and secrets forged in the darkest corners of the Cold War. "It's over for now," I said. Viktor approached me, exhaustion carving deep lines across his face. "You saved millions of lives today," he said softly. I shook my head. "No, you did." He gave a small, bitter smile. "I bought time. Nothing more." We left the chamber together, Sparrow leaning on my shoulder, the three of us climbing back into a world unaware of how close it had come to destruction. As we stepped into the frozen night, Viktor looked toward the horizon, where the faint glow of the awakening city touched the snow. "One day," he said, "someone will find the rest of the system, and they'll try to use it again." "And what will we do then?" I asked. Viktor glanced at me with tired, knowing eyes. "We'll remind them," he said, "that silence only wins if no one speaks." He turned and disappeared into the drifting snow, just as he had years ago, a ghost walking back into the shadows. I watched until he was gone, the last agent who knew too much about nuclear silence, the only man who ever escaped it.